My sister is a triple amputee with no legs. Last night I heard her walk past my room. I recall step for step the noise I heard from the creaking floorboards. I thought I was going to die. My sister Mallory and I were never close. Mal went to school for theater but also honed her dancing skills in ballet. She graduated at 23, but she was incapable of getting a big break. I, however, got a lucky break and was signed to play minor league baseball for a few years. I enjoyed a little bit of success, and though my sister claimed to be happy for me, I think she was a little jealous of the attention that I was finally getting from Mom and Dad. She and I didn't speak much after my big break. Tragedy struck when I was 23. My mother and father died in a raging house fire. Investigators confirmed that there had been no foul play. A few embers from the fireplace may have ignited a curtain or something else nearby. No one ever really recovers from losing a parent, much less both, in such an unexpected and terrible manner. You would expect a tragedy of this magnitude to bring estranged siblings closer together, but it didn't. I saw my sister briefly at the funeral, but after that, it was business as usual. She didn't even show up to receive what my parents had left behind for us in their will. It was a few months later when I noticed Mal's face on a billboard. She had managed to land a role in a soap opera and was also working with professional choreographers. I was proud of her, but I was also focused on my own life and grieving process. I hoped nothing but the best for her. Misery soon paid us another visit, though. I was at work when I got the call. My sister had gotten into a terrible car accident in New York. The other two drivers got out of it relatively unscathed, but the same could not be said of Mal. She had sustained severe injuries that resulted in the amputation of both her legs and one arm. I remember flying out to visit her in the hospital. I told her how happy and grateful I was that she had survived, but she didn't talk to me at all during the visit. She seemed a different person now, devoid of any sort of life. Her dead eyes stared off into space, as red and irritated as her wounds. After a few weeks in the hospital, Mal was allowed to move in with me. Though things were still tense, I was more than willing to take care of her as best I could. I took an extended leave of stay at work and focused all of my attention on my poor sister. She mostly wanted to be left alone in her room, and I respected her wishes. I would hear her watching reruns of the soap opera that she had starred in at all hours of the day. I tried not to hear the sobbing. Whereas the atmosphere in the house was once miserable, it has now become bizarre. I was woken from my sleep one night by the sound of a woman cackling. What the hell? I checked my phone for the time. 3:06. I hadn't heard my sister laugh, or hell, even seen her smile since her accident. What in the world could possibly have her laughing so derisively at this time of night? I made to get out of bed, but my grogginess caused me to stumble and fall, landing on my face, and that was when I heard it. Someone was dancing in the room across the hall, my sister's room. I could not only hear the heavy thuds, but I could feel them as I lay on the floor. My sister was no longer laughing, but seemed to be singing a song, in a language that I didn't recognize. I felt a sense of pure terror that I cannot describe. How did someone get into my house? Why was Mal singing for them as they danced so wildly? "Mallory?" I called out, pushing myself up to my knees. The dancing and singing immediately stopped. I heard the distinct sound of covers being flipped, as though someone had just gotten into bed with Mal. I lumbered across the hall and pushed the old creaky door open, dreading what I might find. No one was there. The TV was turned off, the windows were closed, and Mallory looked to be fast asleep. Following the strange occurrences in my home, I invested in outdoor security cameras for both the front and backyard. I then asked my friend Brent if I could borrow his Doberman, Jimmy Dean, for a few days as well. Once I came home, I fed Mal and went to go watch TV. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by the sound of Jimmy Dean growling. I looked down at him on the floor and saw that he was standing up, tail and ears erect, his attention focused in the direction of the kitchen. The entire house was dark as I had left it, except for the TV. Still, I could not see what exactly the dog was growling at. I felt every hair on my body stand on end. Someone was standing there in the darkness. "Who the hell are you?" I yelled, and made to sit up. It was the strangest feeling. No, there wasn't a feeling at all. I struggled to sit up because I could not feel my legs. I tried to position myself with my hands, but my right hand was simply limp. I couldn't move it. I could vaguely see the silhouette of the person in the kitchen. It seemed to be creeping backwards as though trying to get out of my line of sight. "I see you. Don't run away from me." I went to grab my phone, but in my haste, instead ended up knocking it flying across the room. It landed in front of the TV, and knowing my options were limited, knew that I had to get to it. I forced my body off of the couch and landed hard on my stomach. I began crawling pathetically towards the TV as Jimmy Dean began to bark. I truly believed that whoever was in my kitchen meant to do me serious harm. I was near my phone. Jimmy Dean had stopped barking. No, now he was running and swiftly up the stairs. I could hear his paws as he hauled up, but I remained focused on reaching my phone. I had just reached out my hand when suddenly my TV turned off, plunging the entire room in darkness. This meant one thing. The person had walked up to the couch to grab the remote. They were standing right behind me, goosebumps running up my arms. I turned to face my fears. That was the last thing I remember before everything went even dark. "It's totally your sister, right?" I woke up to Brent whispering at me. I adjusted the ice bag on my head before glancing at Brent in irritation. "You ever wondered how she came up so quick in her career?" I mean, she was good, but she had no real success at all until after your parents. My pain getting the better of me. I flared up. Oh, come on, Brent, what are you suggesting right now? Brent raised his fingers to his lips, shushing me. Just tell the whole world, why don't you? You had success, but not the kind of success that Mal had. She blew up right after your parents died. Now you're losing control of your limbs, and someone has been roaming the house at night. This didn't start until she got here. We need to search her room. Though this all baffled me, I didn't have any other suggestions. Things had gone beyond mere intimidation. I had been physically attacked in my own home. It was about time to do some much-needed investigating on the only other occupant of my house. Brent bought sleeping pills, and I concealed them carefully in the macaroni that I had cooked. Brent left the house so that things didn't seem suspicious, and I went up to Mal's door and knocked politely. It's about time. I'm starving here. Were you and Brent whacking each other off down there? I entered the room and acted as naturally as I could. Sorry, sis. I had a raging headache earlier. I made steak with mac and cheese for you, though. Mal's TV wasn't on today. She eyed the food hungrily, and I felt a pang of guilt for neglecting to feed her. Wow. What did you put in this, mac and cheese? Mal asked, her blue eyes suddenly boring into mine. My breath caught in my throat. It's delicious, I laughed, trying to hide my initial discomfort. I fed Mal and we made a little bit of small talk. By the time I was helping her drink her water, however, her eyes were drooping. The drug was taking its effect. The water was suddenly running down the side of her face out of her mouth, and her eyes were closed. She was out. I texted Brent that it was okay to come back and he was at the house in less than 5 minutes. Brent opened the closet while I rummaged through the drawer next to the bed. I found nothing but old socks and some of Mal's underwear. Brent, however, held up an old aluminum baseball bat of mine. Maybe I'm seeing things, David, but is this blood on your bat? I walked up to my buddy and we both inspected the bat. It did indeed have what looked like freshly dried blood on it. My blood. I don't want to say I told you so, but whatever, man. This is inconclusive. I'm gonna look under the bed. I dropped to my knees and was astonished at just how much stuff Mallory had managed to accumulate under her bed in such a short time. I reached out my right hand and began rummaging through it. I cried out due to the sudden agony that had inflicted me. My knees gave out and my hands suddenly went limp, both searing as though on fire. You okay down there? Brent gasped as I heard the bed creak above me. There was a sickening sound, and Brent suddenly fell to the floor. His eyes rolled back in his head. I tried to roll over to defend myself, but it was too late. I was knocked out for the second time in 12 hours. When I woke up again, I was not sure if my head even hurt at all. No, the only agony that I could feel was the burning in my knees and forearm. I was lying on my own kitchen table, both wrists bound by duct tape, my ankles bound by an old rope. I groaned from the pain and looked around, gathering my surroundings. Brent was sitting on the floor by the refrigerator, duct tape binding him as well. He was still unconscious, but just as I was about to call out to him, I suddenly felt the pain in me flare up like a red-hot flame. Sweat running down my face, I stared at her in absolute terror, not believing what I was seeing. She still had no legs, yet her stump seemed to be moving back and forth as though she was in possession of phantom limbs. My limbs. She scowled as she approached me, slowly coming to a stop beside me. Seeing her floating there was surreal. I wondered if I was still knocked out and just experiencing the worst nightmare of my life. Why? I managed to choke out, my limbs nearly preventing me to speak. Because you're the only one left, David. When one makes the pact, both flesh and spirit must be given. I was only allowed to offer my soul. Mom and Dad were the blood needed to quench his thirst. What? Mal sneered. Things went just as I wanted them to. Until I got into that collision. Now I need more flesh, brother. I simply had to go through the motions of the ritual patiently before the final step could be made. Now I can take them. You won't. Get away with this. Your friend is the murderer here. He cut off your limbs and did God knows what with them before offing himself. Or at least, that's what the police report will say. I won't be able to stay in America since everyone here knows about my accident, but I can achieve fame in other places. I've always been a star, David. Now keep still. Mal bent down and stood up, holding what appeared to be a large rusted saw. No! I yelled, writhing about. Brent's arms closed around Mal's throat. She dropped the saw onto the table next to me in surprise, her face contorted into an expression of hatred. There was a growl as Jimmy Dean came bounding into the kitchen. He pounced upon Mal, who screamed out and raised her left arm to stop the dog from getting to her face. Brent, coughing, was briefly out of action. I found the duct tape easy to break through. Mal hadn't used quite enough, it seemed. I was still useless, however, due to my limp arms and legs. I watched as Mal seized Jimmy Dean with incredible strength and threw him through the window, sending glass shards flying everywhere. She then converged on Brent again, using both her existing hand and the one she was taking from me to strangle Brent. Panicking, I did the only thing that made sense. I grabbed one of the shards of glass and stabbed myself in my right hand. Mal screamed and released Brent. I raised the glass and stabbed myself again, then again. Blood gushed out all over the table. Mal turned to move toward me, but I reached down and stabbed the glass into my knee as well. She fell to the floor, wheezing in pain, and glared up at me. How dare you? Those belong to me now! Brent made his move, and I looked away as he snapped her neck. I heard Mal's body fall to the floor, and the searing pain in my limbs ceased. No, now I could only feel the puncture wounds from the glass that I hadn't felt before. I lay back on the table, sighing. Brent, Jimmy Dean, and I are okay. No one comes to check on my sister, but she does have doctor visits scheduled soon. We still have time to figure out what steps to take now. No pun intended. I'm only getting this story out now just in case they come for me and Brent, and we wind up spending our lives behind bars. This is the truth. We are both victims and survivors. There won't be much evidence, though, should we decide to flee the country like my sister was planning to. We made sure to burn her broken body, just to be sure.